Welcome to the Crown Heathens podcast, where we talk about video games, video game news, and just about anything else. My name is Matthew, and as always, I'm here with my best friends, Marissa and Sacco. Now, I'd like to remind everybody that there are no stupid questions. So I'm going to start us off with a question right now. Marissa, what is today's topic?
So I wanted to go through some emotional turmoil with you today. So what I think we should talk about today is the most emotional moment you've come across in a video game. Try not to cry.
So we're gonna. I'm gonna start us off by saying there will be spoilers, obviously for the games of which the emotional moments happen.
You can see those in our description. It'll be right at the top there.
Yeah. So let's start off with somebody else because I'd like to save mine for later.
Sacco, why don't you go first?
No shock to anybody, mine's in Halo. So Halo Reach was a very emotional journey, you could say. There's a lot of loss in that game. And like going into it, I had already like delved deep into the Halo lore, and it was like, so Halo, just a little background, Halo Reach was the fourth like major game in the series that Bungie released, because there was the Halo 3 ODST as well. But it was a prequel to the original Halo game. So in the timeline of everything, it was Halo 1 through 3, and then Halo Reach came before all those ones. But they released it after. It was the last game they made for the Halo series before they sold it off to Microsoft and ended up making Destiny, essentially. So going into it, I knew, like, you're defending the planet Reach, and I already knew that you don't succeed. The Covenant glass the whole planet, everyone dies. It's a failed mission in that you don't save the planet, but the real part of the mission was getting Cortana off the planet. That was
okay. Wait.
Point.
So, like, as a new player of the game, like, if you had played this before the other games, would you have known?
Oh no,
like, that you were gonna fail?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I guess there's like, they kind of foreshadowed it, because as soon as you turn the game on, the very first thing you see is a broken Spartan helmet buried in the sand that used to be a green field. But you don't know that yet. Like, it's just a broken helmet, and then it cuts to you landing on Reach, helping the rest of your teammates like get ready for like a mission.
Are you like wearing the helmet?
Oh no, there's no one wearing the helmet.
No. There's no one. Okay.
No, it's just a broken helmet.
It's just a random helmet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So my question is, this game obviously came out, they released it after 1, 2, and 3. Do they write the story based off of, you've definitely played 1, 2, and 3, so here's all these like flash forwards, or like here's not necessarily flash forwards, but like they definitely hint at like, oh, you definitely know what's happening? Or is it like this game takes place before, just because we kind of want to tell this part of the story? So if you don't play this one. If you've played the other ones, then you kind of know what's going to happen, but we're not going to like hint too much towards it.
Yeah, exactly. The only real tie-in, I mean, besides like the characters, because you do like encounter some of the characters you encounter in the other 3 games, but the main tie-in is like a little like Easter egg in the ending cutscene. So at the end of the game, which I'll talk about later, but you end up on a ship, and it looks like a cutscene, but you can actually turn the camera to the right. And if you turn the camera to the right, you see a cryopod, and Master Chief is in the cryopod. And then Halo 1 starts with Master Chief coming out of that cryopod.
Oh, so, like it's like right before.
Yeah. Like the ship flies away. Like in the opening of Halo 1, like they're talking about Reach being glassed, and then you start, and then the cryopod opens, and then everyone's like, okay, here's how your armor works, here's how you jump, here's how you move, the basic tutorial stuff. So it's like immediately after the events of Reach, you start Halo 1.
Okay, so was the whole game the emotional journey, or was it like a specific part?
It was a build up, I guess. Like the whole game, you basically slowly lose each of your team members one by one, because like it's kind of assumed that each of the members kind of know it's a suicide mission. Like, you're not going to succeed in saving this planet. You're just trying to get as many civilians off, because there are humans. It's a human inhabited planet. So you're trying to get as many people off as possible, but you also have to get Cortana off. Like that's the main point of the mission, like of Reach. And so like all your team members are slowly dying one by one. Some of them sacrifice themselves, some of them are just killed in battle. And then you get to the end of the game, and it's just like it's just loss after loss after loss, and then everybody is dead, and it's just you, and you get Cortana to the Pillar of Autumn. The Pillar of Autumn takes off, and you're just be like, I will delay them as long as possible. And so you're just fighting, and it's just an endless wave of enemies over and over and over again, and then eventually you die, and then it like cut, like as you play the ending of the game, like your helmet starts to break, like you start to see cracks on the screen and stuff, and then it you end up dying, and then your helmet falls off, like it just a little cutscene plays, your helmet falls off, lands on the ground, and it's the exact same position it was at the beginning of the game, but there's like grass and stuff around it because the planet hasn't been glassed yet, but it's about to be glassed. And then it cuts to the Pillar on them, and you can see in the background that Reach is being glassed, and then everyone's dead essentially, and then game over.
Oh, that's chilling.
Sad. It's a very sad game.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
That sounds very sad.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
The first being, with any game that's released or any form of media that's released out of order, what would you recommend the order of gameplay? Would you recommend playing Reach and then 1, 2, and 3, or would you recommend playing 1, 2, 3 and then Reach if I had access to every single Halo game?
I mean, I guess that really depends on how you'd want to experience it, because like, I mean, Halo 1 came out like 30 years ago.
A millennia ago, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like, I mean, there's Halo 1 remastered, so like the graphics look better, but the gameplay is still kind of clunky, because I mean,
graphics aside, just story-wise, like, do you think that the ending of Reach was more emotional because of this journey that you already know takes place in the future? Or do you think that just going straight in, just you want to watch the planet burn? Like, let's just go for it.
I think either way you play them, you still kind of get the same amount of emotion out of it. It would just be a different, like, basically if you had played Reach first and then played Halos 1, 2, 3, you would have like started off on a low, but like, oh shit, that sucked, everyone died, but like
slowly build up.
Yeah, but I got Cortana off, and so now Master Chief has Cortana, and now we get to like play through
we get to save
the conquering of the Covenant, right? And then you get to the end of 3, and you've saved the world, and you've saved the universe, and they're not going to blow up everything with the rings and all this stuff. But if you play 1, 2, and 3, and then you play Reach, you'd be like, okay, I did all this shit, and then you play Reach, and you're like, well, yeah, I died, but because I died, I was able to play the first 3 games that I just played.
Okay, second question. You said that at the end, like, it's just wave after wave. Is it like a certain amount of people that like you have to fight and then like it ends, or like if you just like don't do anything and just a first person comes and kills you, is it a game over?
Yeah, I mean, you could just stand there and die.
And
like,
just die, and then it'll go to the cutscene.
Yeah,
I love that. Like, I low-key love the like varied ending. That's a small variant to having an ending, but the idea that like you really are just playing it out, like you kind of become that character in that moment. Like, are you gonna just immediately give up and just like let the ending happen?
Yeah, right.
Or are you gonna like kind of actually like, are you gonna try really, really hard? Like, how I'm sure there's lots of people who have like gotten really far in that last little bit because they just keep killing people,
but
then
going on and on and on.
There was
inevitably you're gonna die.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can fight as hard as you want. There is no changing the ending of that game. Like, you're not going to suddenly conquer the Covenant in the Halo Reach, and then all the events of 1, 2, and 3 are no longer needed because you beat everybody.
Not with that attitude, you can't.
But like, there was an achievement tied to it. Like, if you lasted a certain amount of time, you got an achievement. But like at the end of the day, you were supposed to die. That was like the whole point of that battle. Was just like, well, yeah,
that's incredibly sad.
Yeah, like it was.
So my third question, and I'm only asking this because it kind of relates to my game. You said that everybody basically knows it's a suicide mission. Does everybody like your whole team know, like they know they're gonna die, or like they think that maybe they'll get off?
You can see glimmers of it. Like, basically, like when the game starts, everyone's all upbeat. They're like, yeah, we just got to do this. We got to go save these people. Like, we just got to evacuate the planet. That's their whole plan at the beginning of the game, is evacuate the planet. And then slowly, as like more and more Covenant enter the planet, and like the events start taking off and everything starts kind of escalating, you really see like one of the characters that actually sacrifices himself. Like the whole plan is you're blowing up this big Covenant ship, so you get a bomb to it, and then something happens and you can't remote detonate it, and he's like, I'll stay behind, I'll blow it up, and then you guys just get off. And then he like throws you off the ship in the middle of space, and you like end up like plummeting to Earth or to Reach. And like you kind of see it in that moment. He's like, listen, we're gonna die anyways. I might as well make it mean something.
Oh,
Right?
that's not what I'm expecting. Like, when I played Halo, like I played Halo 2, and by played Halo 2, I mean I did not follow the story. I did not, like, I just shot the aliens, or I shot the whatever it told me to shoot. And then I played the multiplayer. Like, I would have never like kind of expected that kind of story from them,
Yeah, and a
from
lot
that
of
game.
a lot of people didn't really expect like that much of an emotional story. But if you like look at it in the context, it was Bungie's last Halo game. Like it was the
Yeah.
last game they were gonna ever make. Like they've been making this game for like 25 years at that point. Like they're like, we might as well go out with like a literal bang, like the end of a planet and the
Not
start
only
of the original series. Like,
not only the fact that it was their last game, but I also feel like in situations like that, you almost get more of an emotional bang when you don't expect it. Like if I'm going into a horror game, I'm expecting to get scared. If I'm going into a first person shooter, I'm expecting to shoot hordes and like, yeah, I'm just gonna run in, shoot, and leave. But it's that moment where it's like, oh no, this is
This
bigger.
means
This is
more.
bigger than us. And
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why I love watching sitcoms, because like I can watch a TV show and it'll be a sad TV show and be like, this is what I'm getting into. But watching a sitcom where it's like you're laughing the entire episode, and then in that one split second, it's like, oh, now I'm crying. And
yeah,
I feel
Oh
like you
shit, how
can
did that
definitely
happen?
get that with the first person shooter games, where it's like they just throw in a story and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like I play a lot of RPGs and I kind of expect it from those games, but the games I've played where I wasn't like really expecting it, I wasn't thinking anything was going to be that dramatic or emotional, are really the ones that hit me the hardest.
yeah, and like it was like little things like, so at the end, because like the whole game you have little like on your HUD, you have your mission pops up. You're like, oh, go to this building, like go do this thing or whatever. And then at the end, it's not like, oh, defeat the waves of enemies. It's like survive as long as you can.
Oh, fuck off.
And you're like,
Sorry.
oh shit, okay.
That got me.
So like, oh, this is like I don't win. Like you just lose, obviously. And I was like, oh, cool. I guess I'm just I'm gonna stay here while you guys live. Bye.
Good luck. Hopefully it works.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
All right.
yeah. So that's a very like that whole concept of like, like you just know that it's like, this is it, like this is the end. And very similar to my game. My game is an RPG, so it doesn't hit as hard. I'm gonna start by saying that pretty much every Final Fantasy has, spoiler alert, I'm gonna talk about Final Fantasy.
Shocked. I'm shocked.
Every Final Fantasy is like the super long story, you fall in love with characters, and then like the ending happens. Final Fantasy X was like a completely different like it was a completely different emotion. First of all, it was like one of the first ones where they had like live voice actors. So like every other one, like the cutscenes were just like music, and like they were moving around, and like they had like some of them had good graphics, but it's like even in the cutscenes they still didn't really talk that much. They didn't have voice actors. They would just like grunt and groan. But Final Fantasy X had voice actors, so like you kind of like can fall a little bit more in love with these characters.
Right.
But basically, I'm just gonna go through the story of, just because neither of you have played Final Fantasy X, right?
No.
And anybody else listening, if you've played Final Fantasy X, you know exactly, like you're already starting to tear up. I can tell. But if you haven't played Final Fantasy X, basically, you play as a character named Titus or Titus. They debated on the internet. I call him Titus. But anyways, Titus lives on a place called Xanarkand. A giant monster comes, knocks him off of Xanarkand into the rest of the world. Like Xanarkand's an island. So he ends up on like Spira, and then you basically meet up with this character Yuna, and Yuna's a summoner, and she's trying to go on her pilgrimage, and like that's pretty much all you know. And you like immediately you're like, you're a famous blitzball player, so like immediately you're like, yeah, like everybody loves me. Like you play blitzball as like the mini game, and then it's like, okay, so like You know what? I'll go on this. Pilgrimage with you. It seems very important. So you're going on this pilgrimage, and like the longer you go on this pilgrimage, the more you learn about the world. So basically, the world of Final Fantasy X is that there was an ancient war, obviously, that happened like 1,000 years ago, and there was a guy called Yu Yevon, and he was from Zanarkand, and he loved Zanarkand so much that during the ancient war, he wanted to protect it. So he was a summoner, and he summoned a dream version of Zanarkand and created a giant monster called Sin to protect it. And Sin has been wreaking havoc on all of these cities. As soon as the city becomes too advanced and like they think that it's gonna like surpass Zanarkand, Sin basically goes and destroys the city.
Oh.
So it's like extremely, yeah, like basically like all of these, like the entire world, like any city that just gets a little bit too advanced or like too technological advanced, like Sin just comes and destroys it. So the whole point of the pilgrimage is to stop Sin. No problem.
Right.
I'll absolutely, like, I'm training, we're going on it. So then you find out that in the original battle, Yu Yevon's daughter, Yunalesca, disagreed with him. She's like, she was also from Zanarkand, but she moved away. And she was like, I understand that what you're trying to do, but this isn't the way to do it. So she tries to fight him. And what she does is to get enough power to summon, to like fight, because it's all about like summoners. So like, Yu Yevon summoned Sin, and like he basically Yu Yevon lives inside Sin, kind of thing.
Okay.
So then Yunalesca sacrifices her husband to create a bigger monster than Sin to fight Sin. So as soon as she kills her husband, extremely sad already. We don't even know these characters. This happened 1,000 years ago. But basically, so I'm trying not to blitz through this just so like it's like I'm just dragging it up. But anyways, I digress. So basically, after Yunalesca kills Sin, Yu Yevon comes out of Sin, kills Yunalesca, and takes over her summon. So like it's just this repeating cycle. And basically the summoners go on this pilgrimage, and like you figure this out like while you're playing the game. You figure out it's like Tidus meets Yuna, and he's like, yeah, I'll help you on your pilgrimage. Yuna knows from the beginning, I'm going on this pilgrimage to die. Like I'm gonna have to murder one of my friends, and then I'm going to die, because then Sin will die for a couple of years, and there will be peace for literally like a couple years, and then another person is gonna go on this pilgrimage again after. So then like they're like nobody else knows about it. And that's why I asked the question about like Halo Reach. Is like, does everybody on the team know that they're dying? But it's like from day one, like wakes up and she's like, I want to be a summoner so that I can kill myself, sacrifice one of my friends, and hopefully give peace to the world for a couple years.
Oh, that sounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like you figure this out like pretty late in the game. Like you're already, and like to go on a pilgrimage, you have to go to basically every single temple in the world and like get small summons until you can like have the final summon. And like, so like the entire time she's just like going through the temples, and like she has to fight it. She has to go through some of them alone, and some of them like her friends can help her. And it's just like you grow to love these characters. And after 70 hours, you realize, oh, I'm going to have to sacrifice like somebody that I love and also myself just for a couple years apiece.
So question.
But that's not, yes, go for it.
What is a summon? Like what is.
They're just like, okay, so like they're just like monsters, like giant monsters that you can control. It's like you summon these beasts. Like you basically summon these beasts. Like some of them are, like some of them look like dragons. Some of them look like blobs. Like you basically just get like these like.
They're just like a giant Titan thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Titan. Like some like there's Ifrit and like Shiva. Like some like there's an ice goddess, a fire demon, giant dragon, behemoth. There's like one called Leviathan. It's like a giant like water snake. Like most of the Final Fantasy games have like these summons, so like we're kind of just used to the fact like, oh, we're fighting monsters and we can summon monsters that like will help fight for us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Basically, so that's like the lead up to like the emotional part. Here's the emotional part.
Oh, that's not the emotional part.
No, that's not even it. So like basically, you find out that Tidus isn't real. He is from Dream Zanarkand. He's not from Zanarkand. He was created by Yu Yevon when Yu Yevon summoned this dream culture. So now you get to the point where either Yu Yevon will live and Yuna will die, or Yuna will finally succeed in killing Sin, but Tidus will die. And it's like, what do we do? Like, what do we do? And it's like, basically, it's like, we have to save the world. And then Final Fantasy throws this huge curveball. Tidus's father, Jecht, went on the pilgrimage, the one before Yuna. and he was the one who got sacrificed, and he became Sin.
Oh,
So
shit.
he
Oh.
became the giant monster, who then went to Dreams Anarchind, attacked Titus, so that Titus would end up in the real world, and then Titus can do this because Jack kept a bit of his memory. He kept a bit of his consciousness. So together, they defeat Yu Yevon. And basically the game ends, like right before it ends, is like you're this whole battle, like you're fighting. You finally beat Yu Yevon. And Titus is like, they literally look at each other and like, that's it, like there's peace. And Titus, like, he slowly starts to turn invisible. And like you see him drifting away. And Yuna's like, don't go, I love you. And he's like, it's time. And like she runs towards him to hug him. And like she just falls through him.
No.
And it's just like the music, like their score is fantastic. And you just see like it's like, this is it, like this is the moment we've been fighting for, like there's finally world peace. And he just slowly fades.
Oh.
And it's like, oh. And then basically the game ends with like him fading away, and like Yuna's just there, and then she goes to like her like city, and she like has a big speech, and she's like, we have peace, like we have to remember all the people that we've lost along the way, and the friends, and like we must always remember our loved ones. And then like it pans away, and it's just like the bottom of the ocean, and you see Titus, and he opens his eyes at the bottom of the ocean, and it's like Final Fantasy X.
Fuck off.
End of the game. And it's like, oh my god, like the ups, the downs, like figuring out the story is like, it's really complicated, and like Final Fantasy does that, and like a lot of JRPGs, like they go really heavy in the story. But just like him fading away, like if you have a chance, if you've never played this game, and I just spoiled all of it, literally just go on YouTube, type in Final Fantasy X ending, and watch this ending, knowing that like you never knew the entire time that one of you had to die, and like knowing all that, just go watch the ending, and like you will literally, like, it will make you tear up.
Yeah, that sounds rough. Like that sounds like a rough journey. Like lots of twists, lots of turns. I'm probably crying a couple times.
Oh, for
to be
sure.
expected with like the RPGs, but like that just goes back to like, even though it's expected, like they just go harder, because like they know it's like, we got to do it.
How old is this game?
Okay, so it originally came out for the PlayStation 2.
Oh, okay. Oh, so
it's like an old game. They remastered it for the PlayStation 4.
Oh, okay.
So you can play it. You can play Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2. I've never played X-2, but I think, spoiler alert, I think Titus comes back. I think that's what they were hinting at. They figure out some way to bring him back. But like just playing 10, it was just like, oh, it was emotionally. It was like,
was it emotionally? Oh yeah, I was gonna ask, was it emotionally like draining or emotionally fulfilling?
It was draining. I feel like it's draining the entire time. Like once you realize that one of you has to die, like it gets really, 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 really draining, and it's like, it's really sad and like heavy. But then like in the moment, like they did a really good job of making it about world peace, and it's like our small sacrifice will not be in vain, and like there's kind of like hope at the end of the tunnel, where like this has been going on for 1,000 years, and like finally there could be peace. And then I also think like, because like maybe like 30 seconds later, like you see him at the bottom of the ocean, and he opens his eyes, and it's like, oh, he's alive. Like they tease a little bit. It was like, yes, yeah, I was extremely sad, you're crying, but wait, there's more.
But wait, we're not done with your heart yet.
Oh, it was like they were playing with the heartstrings, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
Interesting. I asked if it was emotionally draining because I've played a lot of RPGs, and sometimes it crosses a line into like so much emotion that you kind of get numb to it, or like you maybe are like kind of like they can't really top themselves, you know, like they've like kind of drained all that they can from you, and you're just kind of sad for the rest of the game.
I think that also comes with how long the game itself is, because like there's games that are like really sad games, and they're like 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours. But like, I can't imagine playing like Final Fantasy. It's like 70, like to complete the game is like 70 hours. That's not including like side quests and like side like mini games that you're playing. Like just to complete the story, it's going to take about like 60, 70 hours. Like even on a speed run, it's probably like 60 hours. So like, being sad for that long, like eventually you're just going to like, I don't want to play this game anymore.
Yeah, that would add up pretty quickly for sure.
So like Final Fantasy is pretty good with that, where it's like the ups, the really high highs and the really low lows definitely happen at a frequency where it's like, oh no, this is good. I want to keep going.
Yeah, they got to keep you coming
Interesting.
back, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to talk about a game I really love, and I've forced both of you to play, so I know you've played it. And it's actually not Dragon Age.
What?
So we can all revel in that.
Wow,
Yeah, I'm going to talk about
to the script, and you're going
Marissa,
off
I actually,
here, eh?
I actually don't. Before you say the game, I'm like trying to think of a game that you made me play that like wasn't Dragon Age, and I'm just like, I'm drawing.
Yeah,
a
just
blank.
take a wild guess. Like, do you have anything?
I'm
what do you
drawing
think
a blank
I'm
at
talking
an
about?
emotional game. I'm drawing.
Was it Peggle?
It was not Peggle.
Peggle
No,
2,
it was
Peggle?
not Peggle.
Peggle
It was
2.
not Peggle 2. Peggle
Yeah.
2 did have more emotion in it, but it was not Peggle 2.
Yeah.
So it's Detroit Become Human.
Oh,
Yeah. So
that is a good game.
Yeah, it is a very good game. I highly recommend this game. If you haven't played this game, I'm about to spoil a lot of it, so just be ready for that. But Detroit Become Human came out in 2018. It's technically an adventure game. It's a heavy choice-based game. And you follow the stories of 3 androids living in Detroit. In the future at some point. It's like some sort of future world. I can't remember the precise year, but basically you follow Connor, who is a police investigator android, Kara, who's a housekeeper android, and Marcus, who is taking care of an artist at the beginning of the game. And through the journey, they have an option to become something called deviant, which is just basically them gaining a sense of, I guess, consciousness is a good way to describe it. Basically the decision to ignore or take on whatever people are requesting them, basically any sort of autonomy. And the whole game is kind of an emotional journey. Like, you guys can back this up, but like, and I think it fell throughout the whole thing, but there were specific moments where like I felt kind of like overwhelmed with emotion. Like, it was actually really getting to me in different ways. And the one scene I'll kind of talk about right off the bat here is you're playing as Marcus. And Marcus actually really loves his like the person he's supposed to caretake for, this artist. And he is, just kind of setting things up for the night or something. He's getting him a drink. And, they come home from an event. And it's very clear that somebody has like broken into their house. And it turns out that it's this guy's son who is looking for drug money. Because he's been like, apparently he does this a lot. Like, you get a lot of context from this scene. And basically, the guy starts pushing around his dad. And as the android, you're told to not do anything. And Marcus, as he really loves this guy, is like, no, this is wrong. Like, he's getting hurt. And at that point, you break your orders and you become deviant.
I'm breaking
and
free.
there's two outcomes, and having watched other people play this and having played it myself, I've seen both the outcomes of this scene, and neither of them are great, and both of them end up with you being shot as this android. And so that part I always felt really emotional because it was like a high intensity scene, and like the look on Marcus's face where like, because the one of two outcomes is either the son dies and the caretaker is like, what have you done? And it's just this like sense of overwhelming guilt before the cops show up and shoot you. Or your caretaker, like your owner, basically, dies. And he dies and you watch him die. And then the son says he did it and points to you and you get shot. That in and of itself is like, just like, I remember being in like kind of almost tears and like holding them back and being really proud of that. And then the next scene with Marcus is you're in a dump.
Oh yeah.
With broken down robots, and you have to basically find pieces and parts of you to fix yourself. And that like scene, not only is it like terrifying to me because I'm a baby and I don't like scary parts of games,
But even just the idea
and it's a
of,
little
like-
bit creepy, but it was like really quite upsetting and sad at the same time. Like, so you have this like kind of creepy-esque vibe, and then this like overwhelming sadness of like this fear of like this is the brink of death for these creatures, basically,
and it's and
who
not
have
only that,
now
but it's a
achieved
dump.
autonomy.
And it's literally like a garbage dump, and you're like, imagine being just
On
like
the verge
thrown
of death.
away, and they just throw you away.
And nobody
Yeah.
thought anything about it either. It wasn't like a big, like, you know, like a human being thrown in a dump is a very different context. People, they were just like, oh, this is
But it's
over
not
like this.
That's kind of the whole like feel of the game, though. Like the reason why it's so emotional is that like it plays with your like feelings, and it's like, is this when does it become too much, and when is it okay? And the entire
And I
game you're
think-
just fighting that like inner like dialogue.
Which they kind of do
And
in
I
the
think the other thing was with me in particular is they always structured it as the androids mirroring whatever I was feeling in that scene. And they were feeling it very like evidently, even though we're told from other people that androids
That they
can't
don't
have
have
feelings and
feelings.
emotions and stuff like that. But very clearly you see, especially once they become deviant, that they do. The other scene I really think is quite emotionally heavy, and it's not exactly sad. It's more like fear-filled, is there's a scene you can get with Kara. You don't necessarily get this scene, but basically you end up at this house and a cop shows up and they're looking for deviant androids. So they're looking for someone like Kara. So she basically is trying to pretend she's human in that scene, and you have to go around the house and hide things that will because there's other deviants in the house as well. You have to hide things that will basically flag or bring an alarm to the cop. And as the cop, you only get a certain amount of time to hide things, so you can actually miss stuff. And basically there's like kind of a like alarm system for him of how suspicious he is of you and like the house. And I remember what I those scenes always get me really intense, but like it actually starts to shake and like almost glitch out the screen if Kara, if he starts to look alarmed, Kara will actually start to like emote fear as well. And like because she was emoting fear at the same time as I was emoting fear, it just like kind of culminated. Like it was really, really intense.
It really brings you into that universe, and it's like, especially because it's a choice-based game, like not only are you watching and like feeling what these people are feeling, but like your actions directly like affect the game. So like when you were saying like when there was two outcomes and it's like no matter what you're gonna get shot, it's like you don't know that both outcomes are gonna get shot, but like you click something, like you're like, this is what I'm doing, and then you're shot and you're in a dump and you're like, oh my god, I did this, like I need to, like you feel almost bad, like it's your fault, like you did
and
this.
Like the other thing is so we ended up I was playing it with my friend Megan, and when I was playing it, one of my characters died. And so the main screen of the game, you always go back to this android who's like leading you through. She's basically kind of just like, she's kind of the menu, but if you ever kill a character, she almost cries.
Yeah.
And like they like really hammer in the guilt, and they're like, no, you're responsible for these characters. Your decisions mean life or death between them. You need to be more careful. And she literally says that to you, and you're like, I'm so sorry. Like I didn't mean to. Like, let me take it back. Like I don't know. That game gets me every time in many different places, but those were kind of like some of the bigger moments.
The thing about that game that makes me so like, it makes me feel so many different emotions is because I was like, yeah, I'll play it eventually. Like it's on my list, like blah, 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 blah. And then you basically were like, we are sitting down, we are playing this game. I know. And I was like, no, like, it's fine. Like, I don't really want to. You're like, no, stop, sit down, play the game. And that's how it started. And then like 2 weeks, or like not even 2 weeks, like 2 days later, I was like, can we play Detroit? Can we play Detroit? Can we play Detroit? Can we play Detroit?
You're like,
right
no,
now?
I
Can we
need to
play
finish the
Detroit?"
game. Yeah, it's one of those kind of game, and like the emotional journey is just phenomenal. Really, I can't express that enough. So before we move into the games we're currently playing here, I do just want to point out that we do have some other contenders on the list. Basically kind of like a honorable mention. So that we'll be talking about them maybe in a later podcast here.
I'm
one
definitely demanding right now that we're gonna do a part 2, just because there's at least a couple video games I can name right now that I don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're gonna
same.
do if we didn't talk about your most emotional game, we're sorry, but we will get to it in a later episode. Please stick around.
But maybe just remind us that we didn't talk about it on social media, and we'll make sure to conclude it in one of the next ones.
So, Marissa, the game that you want to, what is your honorable mention? A game that you don't want to spoil right now, but definitely top of the list.
So this is going to be without a doubt The Last of Us Part 2. I'm going to stop talking immediately so I do not spoil any emotional moment. But if you have not played that game yet, I definitely recommend you play it. Mainly so I can talk about it and share in the emotional journey with everyone listening.
It's still a pretty new game, so I understand why we don't want to spoil that. I personally haven't played it, but I have heard good things.
Yeah.
My honorable mention is, I know you are currently playing Final Fantasy 15. And
oh gosh,
like all Final Fantasy games, there is an emotional journey. Final Fantasy 15 is the only open world Final Fantasy, so it plays a little differently. And I feel like what they did, I'm not going to get too much into it because I know I don't want to spoil what you're doing, but the way they portray the story being an open world game, I think it's a very, very, very good way to portray. Like, they tell the story in an open world without it being, you don't lose too much of it. Like, it doesn't become too loose, and they bring it all back together. And I'm very excited. As soon as you told me you were playing Final Fantasy, I'm so excited I can't speak. As soon as you told me you were playing Final Fantasy 15, immediately I was like, I cannot wait to talk about this 70 hours from now.
Amazing.
So that is my honorable mention. We'll get back to it.
Sacco, do you have any honorable mentions?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, there are, like, The Witcher 3 had a couple of emotional scenes. God of War had a couple of emotional scenes. There are some other scenes in some other Halo games, but like they weren't as impactful as Halo Reach. But I'm sure I'll think we've played enough games. I'm sure I'll think of another one for the next time. But yeah, nothing specific right now.
Well, I'll actually take yours then, because I have another one on my list. It's Dragon Age Inquisition. There's many emotional moments, none of which I can spoil right now because Matt has not finished playing it on our YouTube channel.
Yeah,
I'm working on it. Working on it with a little help from my friends.
So, as we are talking about what we're currently playing, let's shift right into Matt.
So I have a problem, and my problem is being addicted to Call of Duty Zombies. And
that's not a real problem.
It's not a real problem. It is a little bit, because I woke up the other day and I just thought to myself, wow, I missed Horizon. It's not gone. I could play it, but I was just like, man, I missed that map. Should play that map.
That is a good map. That is a good map. That is one of like top 10 maps for sure.
For sure.
I can't commit to any higher than that because I have to put more thought into it, but definitely top 10.
It was an excellent map.
When I first started playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, like I started with the campaign and I was doing the online games. And I played a little bit of zombies, but mostly just like fooling around. I'm getting to a point now where it's like I need to dive a little bit deeper. So I'm going to start actively trying to complete some of the challenges that they give you. I don't want to jump too far into the Easter egg without you guys, but I might be forced to, depending on how my night goes.
No,
I'm trying to do the right now. I'm trying to do the challenges just to get some cool calling cards, but the challenges are really what I'm focusing on right now for the zombies, and I'm excited to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So, Sacco, I'm gonna just assume that you're still making progress on Shadow of War.
I am. Yep. Something happened in it that we might talk about in a different episode, so I won't talk about it right now. But yeah, it's a fun game, but shit happens, and I'm not happy about it.
It's
an
a
emotional
fun game and shit happens. I feel like
Maybe-
that's just like a tagline for almost any game.
Maybe an emotional game that we'll get back to later.
Yeah, potentially.
We'll see how it ends. Marissa, what are you playing?
Oh, I have gone off the deep end with Tetris Connected. So I'm really addicted to it. I don't know what's happening.
It's so
I've
good.
never loved Tetris this much in my life. Like even when I was younger and had a Game Boy and like would just play that endlessly in the car. There's something different about this Tetris game. I finished all the levels in the journey mode on normal level. So now I'm working on
obviously
hard.
Marissa fashion. You gotta put yourself through torture.
Yeah,
Yep.
of course, naturally. You gotta have it at like speed 13, 14, and you can't even see the blocks before they are hitting the bottom. Like you gotta swing into it. I'm learning lots about Tetris. It's a much deeper community and game than I ever thought it
You're
was.
finding
So
the story, the lore is coming out.
I'm finding a little bit of like story lore. I'm also finding like moves that I didn't really even know existed because I thought it was a very simple game.
You
It's
gotta
not.
get those T-spins.
There's actually like the T-spins.
You gotta get the T-spins.
You gotta be like just combining things for points. Like you gotta just go for it. So
The thing about
I'm
Tetris
really enjoying it.
is that it's really easy to like get the blocks down, but to be like a really good Tetris player, you got to look at like the next block. Like it's not enough that like this block is currently falling. You have to also look at the next block and then the block. Like you have to know, you have to have a plan. And it's like that's the part that I can never get into. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. Tetris Effect and Tetris Effect Connected, they do something with the music and the visuals where it's like every single time, I don't know how it works because obviously the blocks fall at different speeds and like depending on what button I click, they fall at different times, but it fits into the music and it's like I am not playing Tetris. I am living Tetris.
Yeah.
I am
As stupid
Tetris.
as that sounds, like
in
I
that
am
moment, I
Tetris.
was Tetris.
Yeah, I
And
don't
it's
know
like,
how they
it's
did it.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that. Also, every once in a while they have every time there's a full moon. Connected verses, which is super fun because you get to play as like the boss. So I'm having lots of fun with that.
Not only that, but on the full moon, like that's great.
It's amazing. I love the thought that they put into this game. I love how the commitment they just ran with. Like everything about it is just
absolutely
I'm in love with.
It's an absolutely beautiful game. I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing blocks when you close your eyes yet?
Yes, I'm actually
Marissa.
seeing them everywhere.
Marissa, you have experienced the Tetris effect.
Exactly. All right. So as always, thank you all for listening. For more Crowned Heathen content, please check out our YouTube channel. It's called Crowned Heathens. We're currently filming a series called WWMD, or What Would Matt Do? You can find lots of great Matt quotes there. You can also check out our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook accounts, and they are all at Crowned Heathens. Until next time, thanks.